Welcome to the presentation of the Owens model. The Owens model is a task observation model that was designed to give us the most effective sweet spot on the bat, 6 and 4 and cover drive value out of the task observation system, specifically related to the mining industry. So what are we going to cover? The task observation process is commonly referred to as the PTO program. Now, when you say a PTO program, you also need to say UTO program. As the P in PTO is for planned task observation, you would need to have an unplanned task observation. That is why the correct term to use is the task observation process. When we look at the task observation process, we have either planned or unplanned task observations. Under each of these areas, we would have critical task observations and non-critical task observations. So what makes a task observation planned versus unplanned? Having a planned task observation means that you at a shift supervisor level, for example, have a 12-month schedule that you have plotted all your employees with the observable tasks for competence, and that 12-month schedule means that at the end of 12 months you would have observed the functional or competence-based tasks of each employee in that 12-month period. This would also mean that as your legal requirements in your legal appointment states, that even though the people have gone through the training center, you are still responsible to confirm their competence at your working place. Unplanned task observations would refer to something that has no schedule, and you would at most have planning for the next month. So what are these? What are we talking about here? Here we are talking about all tasks that are going to be observed as a result of a management of change process. It's either a new employee, new equipment, new procedure, new task process. It's as a result of an injury or incident or due diligence. That is what the unplanned section refers to. To find that absolute sweet spot, where are we going to get the most value out of the task observation process? The same way we look for that sweet spot on a cricket bat when we hit a 6 or a 4 on brilliant cover drive. This is the same sweet spot we're looking for. Where can we get the most value out of the task observation process? We found that this sweet spot is in that middle section of management between the shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section manager. I'm going to explain to you why. When you look at the left side of the model, we are talking about operators and miners. The operators are typically your loco operators, winch operators, those guys who busy themselves with pre-use checklists, pre-work assessments, and things like that. This is the fit-for-purpose documentation and processes where when they complete this documentation and they complete this process, it adds value to the organization. The same applies to the level of the miner. The miner is busy with inspections, pre-work assessments, permits, safe declarations. Those are the documents and processes that if the miner completes these correctly, it adds value to the business. Now moving right across the spectrum to the production manager and the general manager. This is more directing and strategizing around the business, solving technical issues, driving visible felt leadership, being part of visible felt leadership, driving campaigns, driving life rules, and being involved, getting the open door policy. That is the focus of these people in these roles. If they do this correctly, they add value to the business. The section that remains in the middle, shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section manager. This is the value adding area where if these people in these roles do the task observation process properly, we will get value, the most value from this level. Extending task observations to the minor level will become a paper exercise for them, and they will not generate the value in the task observation process because they are focusing on safe declarations, permits, and entry permits. Extending it to the general and the production manager will become a paper exercise, which will most probably just fall behind, as is currently the case in industry, because these guys are busy with the value-adding processes of strategy, direction, visible felt leadership, and supporting the campaigns. So it really leaves the guys in the middle. If you look at the shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section manager legal appointments, in terms of the Mine Health and Safety Act, it refers to an area where they need to confirm the competence of the people under their charge. How does a shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section manager currently answer that question? Is your people competent? The typical answer we receive is yes, they've been to the training center, they have been declared competent, here's the competency certificate, I'm happy. But that's not what the legislation requires. It says, how did you confirm that these people are competent? The person cannot be appointed in that role if they're not competent. And that is the section at the part of the training center. You as the line manager still need an additional process to confirm that your people are competent under your charge, in your working place, doing what they're trained to do. So if you cannot say that the training center has declared them competent and I'm happy, what platform do you have? What evidence do you have? This is where the task observation process actually fits. The task observation process is not another safety initiative, another safety process that we need to do. It is a platform, a value-adding platform for line management to comply with the legal requirements of making sure that their people are competent on the job. Why do we do task observations? For two reasons. We are either checking the competence of our employee or we are checking the practicality of the task procedure. Those are the only two reasons. Like I mentioned previously, we can go planned, unplanned, we can go critical, we can go non-critical, we can go management of change, new employee, new technology. The main reasons we do task observations is to check either the competence of an employee or the practicality of a task procedure underground. Now, once again, when we look at the shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section managers, that's not the ideal person and subject matter expert to confirm that. When we talk about planned task observations, we are referring to the section with the shift supervisor. We are talking about covering all his employees on a predetermined and pre-scheduled 12-month schedule. He needs to make sure that in a 12-month time frame, he has observed the competence-based tasks of all the employees in his section. He has a 12-month schedule, so he conducts planned task observations. Right. When we move to the mine overseer, we have another section of planned task observations. But it would be senseless for the mine overseer to do the same observations that the shift supervisor has already done. So what is the mine overseer going to focus on? As he is the overseer and the HOD of the section, all critical task observations will move into a schedule for the mine overseer. So the shift supervisor will do the non-critical task observations. The mine overseer will do the critical task observations, also plotted on a 12-month schedule. When we move to the section manager, the shift supervisor has done the non-critical, the mine overseer has done the critical, so what's left for the section manager? The section manager only has unplanned task observations. This covers the related task for each injury on the previous month. If you had a winch-related injury in January, the section manager would plan to have task observations related to winch operations done in February. So yes, technically speaking, he would plan it for February, but it's not on a continuous schedule or a 12-month schedule. This is what the section manager will be busy with. Granted, there will be unplanned task observations due to a management of change process, which can then be slotted in under the shift supervisor, mine overseer, and section manager. But this is the basis we're working from. This is where we're going to get our value. 95% of the task observations here are planned. we execute this properly, line management will have a platform to confirm their competence. We will have an area where we can escalate problems in the task procedure, possible revisions, possible improvements, and it's going to come out of this section. So what is the next step after confirming this is the value adding section? The next step is to develop the schedule. On the next slide, I'm going to show you a schedule that we've already developed, which rolls up for each shift supervisor and gives the mine overseer an overview of where all these shift supervisors are. We're only going to cover this one section, as the sheet will be similar for the mine overseer and for the section manager. Okay, so this is the planned task observation plotter. This is your annual planning for the shift supervisor. So you'll do this once a year in consultation with the safety department just to help him. Or if he can do this by himself, all the better. What we have under the geographical section is just your normal information. I mean, this operation, this section, this is the mine overseer, this is me, this is my section. On the right hand side, we have the PTO performance schedule. This is a monthly plan versus actual schedule that will populate by itself the moment you have inputted or input all your data. This section is your actual plotter where you will input all your employee information and then start scheduling when you will do these task observations. At the bottom, this is just a planning section that consolidates all your planning at the top, and this is the section where your safety department will complete all the task observations that you've already submitted. This will then be plotted on a progressive scale. So if we can start at the top, just inserting some mock data. Here we have, for example, I have a RDO, CHISA, timber, LHD operator and a winch operator in my section. Anything, if I have any other further occupations, these will be added here. So let's just say this is not real-time data or factual data, this is all fictional. So let's have a look. Let's say we have 3 RDOs, we have 3 CHISAs, we have 5 timbers, very unlikely. LHD operators 2 and winch operators 10. So maybe we've taken over a section with a lot of ore in, and we don't need to blast that much, it seems like. Right, the observable tasks to confirm competence. Let's say for the RDO, it's early entry examination, drilling the face or drilling roof bolt holes. So we'll have 3 tasks that we will be observing for the RDO. So 3 tasks for 3 operators gives us 9 tasks that we need to observe. Let's, for example, put in 3 tasks at each of these occupations. It then tells us that for the year, this shift supervisor will need to do 69 task observations in a 12-month period, which means 5.75, which is basically 6 task observations per month. So now we no longer have a message from the safety department saying everybody must submit 1 PTO per week, which is absolute nonsense, because this is just a thumbsuck figure and it doesn't relate to any real source of planning. Now a shift supervisor with 23 people in his section will have to do 6 task observations per month. The shift supervisor with 10 people will have to do 2, maybe 2 or 3. The shift supervisor with 50 people will most probably have to do 10. But now we have a tangible source for the number of task observations that we need to do within a month. Right, here we've added some data. Let's say the 3 RDOs, one's name is Steve Stevenson, which I also doubt, but yes. Alright, and here we have the RDO with the 3 tasks, observable competence tasks that we have listed. So now the shift supervisor can start his planning. We can say, Mr. Steve Stevenson will observe his tasks in February, or let's make it in January so we can start at the beginning. The next guy will do in January, the next guy will do in January as well, this guy will also do in January. And then we can move over to the CHISAs. Actually, this we can draw over to the following, to the next section.
because that is where his actions or his tasks are listed. So let's say we do that in February, we do this guy in February, we do this guy in February, or we do that guy in March, and then we'll go to the next occupation, which is the timber, for example, and we'll start populating. Well, maybe we'll do that one in February as well. Well, we want to do that one in February as well, and then we'll do the next one in March. And in this way, we continue to populate and plan all of these occupations and people that we have. Now I'm just going to grab some pre-populated data from the next sheet, which will just speed up the process for us a little bit. It's going to ask me to replace the data. Yes, replace the data. So now, based on the amount of Januaries you've selected versus your plan of 5.75 task observations per month, your planning checks and balances already contains the year plan for your monthly requirements. Here you can see that a plotted plan shows 8, which means you selected January here 8 times versus a requirement of 5.75. So your guidance column tells you you need to plan less, which means you will have to go and reduce the number of Januaries. So you will have to look for all your Januaries and see how you can adjust the plan to get that to a status of good. That means you've planned 6, you needed to plan 5.75, so you're in a good state. Here you can see again 10 versus 5.75, you need to plan less. Here in May, you have a requirement of 5.75 versus a plotted plan of 1, which means you have to plan more. So you will have to make more May selections in your planning in order to meet that requirement. We're almost there. We're almost there. Let's do another one in May. Let's change that April to May. See what happens. There we're now in good stead. And subsequently we're in good stead for April as well now. When we move down, all this planning that's been conducted here has been transferred to the safety department use section. So now at the end of the month, the safety department will say, you plotted 6, we received 6, thank you very much. In terms of your progressive for January, you are on par, and in terms of your requirement per month there, you are on par as well. So now we proceed and say, in this month we only received 8, this month we only received 5. But in this month we received 10, and in this month we received 8. So it'll update your progressive status over here, and it'll update your monthly progress at the top. All the shift supervisor sheets, this is for P. Miller, for example, this is all fictional data. For P. Miller, we have a next shift supervisor called A. Venter. All of this information rolls up to your Mine Overseer dashboard, which has all your shift supervisors listed, and all their information in terms of the month is also reflected here. So your Mine Overseer will see that for January, the shift supervisor is on par, and then he is ahead, and then he is behind. So he can manage the process from there. It all totals into his section, to saying his section overall is behind, there it's ahead, there it's on par.
In conclusion, if we look at the fact that the reason we are doing task observations is either to confirm the competence of an employee or the feasibility or practicality of a task procedure in the actual working place, who would be the owner of the task observation process? The decision is fairly simple. Once I have a finding related to either the competence or the procedure, who will be able to fix it or amend it? And the answer is the training department. The training department in terms of the competence of the employee, but also the training department in consultation with the standards and operational control department who develop the mining standards. Thus, the training department remains the accountable party and the owner of the entire task observation process, and not the safety department as commonly misunderstood. The user is line management. Line management uses this process. Safety doesn't use this process. Line management uses the task observation process for one of two reasons: to check the competence of the employee or the practicality of the procedure or the task process. Safety department, the safety function, is a role of being informed. The safety department will do the analysis of the task observation and determine that this is a problem, this is a trend, we can focus on this, we need to drive a campaign on that, let's look at this, let's strategize around that. The safety department uses the information. The operational control department, like I mentioned in consultation with training, the operational control department is the guys doing the standards, the procedures, the checklists, the guiding, all the operational control and governance. They are also being informed of what to change. But in essence, the training department is the overall accountable owner of the task observation process. Below is a simple table on the concept of a RACI matrix: responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed, like we just discussed in the previous slide. The table below is very high level overview and it gives a limited indication of the key areas of responsibility, areas of accountability, and who needs to do what. This will obviously change based on your operation and your organizational structure and your departmental structures. This is just a guideline. I would like to thank you for your time browsing through this presentation. Like I mentioned, this is a very quick, very high level overview. If you need any further information, please feel free to contact me. My details are on the slide, the bottom left corner. I'm available on LinkedIn, I'm available on Facebook, and our website is currently being revised and revamped. So if you go to www.healthandsafetysa.co.za, you will get a boring page, but when you click on it, you'll get to a much more exciting page. Thank you once again for your time. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact me.